Hi again. Today I've pulled out my old camera and dusted it off. It's actually, I realised, I was looking online this morning and realised that it's been 10 years this month or last month, that I bought this 300D. And this was a significant camera in its day. This was the first digital SLR camera to be less than £1,000. And so yeah, for myself and a lot of others, it meant that suddenly digital photography was an option. So I went out and bought this along with, this was the kit lens that came with it, just the 18 to 55. They still do now as a kit lens, but they've improved them. But not long later, I went out and bought this Sigma, which is my 28 to 300 that I've spoken about in other videos. And yeah, just an excellent range to be able to use as a kit lens to keep with you all the time. So how did I get on? Well, actually, I was quite impressed taking photos. I went out with my son and the dog and we just had a walk. I will show you in a minute how I got on with that. I'm going to show you exactly as they came in. I should pull them into Aperture, which is the program I use to convert raw files. And but a few things that I found frustrating first off, and without getting technical, what did I find as differences? The autofocus definitely was a lot slower and less responsive as I was trying to follow the dog around, different things. There are settings missing on here. I don't have a facility to say I want to spot focus and stay, so as I move it isn't roaming in and out trying to find the next thing. There's no settings for that. If I'm shooting on RAW, I still have the ability to shoot on RAW on this, and let me just demonstrate how slow. If I want to shoot some on rapid fire, I'll just lock this down so it's not trying to focus. And just listen, this is shooting now. 4 shots in RAW. I've still got my finger down. 5, 6. And now it's telling me it's busy. So I've taken 6 photos. Look at that small display as well. Very different to what we have now. That still isn't ready after just taking 6 raw photos. Still flashing at me, that's how I know the thing's not ready. Very different to what you get with a new camera now. Processors are improving. Still got a red light, it's still not ready. If I was out in the field, there we go, now that's okay. So 6 shots in RAW has taken all that time to buffer and to load and to process. So that to me is the biggest difference in this. Dials and settings very much the same. As I say, the screen is tiny. You really couldn't do a lot of reviewing on a screen like this. You could just about work out whether you'd taken the photo or not. And yeah, so on the whole, it's still a very nice, comfortable camera to hold and use. From memory, I had a battery pack that fitted the bottom of this because I like that bit more grip there. I think I sold that on actually some years ago. But no, I mean, very much what I'm trying to show here is, do you need to upgrade your camera, or actually a 10-year-old digital camera, is it still any good? Too many people get too hung up with, got to get the next camera, got to get the newest kit because it will really improve my photos. Well, let's just have a look and see if that is the case. Okay, so these are the photos that I've just brought straight into Aperture, which is my RAW editor of choice. If you've got a Mac, this is definitely recommend you come on and start using Aperture. It really is good. Very little use of Photoshop these days because I can do so much in this. But anyway, that's beside the point. So I've got 93 photos that I've brought in here along the bottom of my thumbnails. Nothing has been touched yet. I want you to see it as they come in, not what I can do. This one wasn't very impressive. In fairness, I'm shooting out at the full length of my 300mm lens. Settings wise, there's nothing wrong, but it was just pushing it and asking a lot. So I'm not overly surprised. This would be more typical of what I would do when I'm out taking photos. Now I'm spotting straight away these are coming in quite dark. That's probably because I was, rather than checking the histogram on the back of the camera, I'm looking at the way they're coming out on the review screen on the back of the camera, and maybe that's just a bit brighter than I'm familiar with. So, but again, I've brought these in RAW, so not a problem. All I need to do on here is click on my exposure and look at the potential I've got both sides of playing with that, and that's touching the raw file. So I can click on, say plus 0.9 there of a stop, and I can up that. It's a shame the dog's frothing a bit. She's been out running. But anyway, for the point of this, let's just zoom in on her eye. That's where I would have been focusing. And that's pretty good. I think I would be happy with that. Now this is, you do realise that this doesn't have the quality of what the newer camera would have. Very noisy on here in the background. But at that size, it would be fine. If you were wanting to print these out, even at 10 by 8s or something, you wouldn't have an issue with these. Again, this is Jamie. Then I'll tell you what I'll do. This is something else that you can do with Aperture, is I can lift this. So what I've applied to this one, which is only really adjusting the exposure. Do I want to do anything else? Not really on this. So I can lift that, and when I come to my next one, I just click apply, and it drops the same settings that I just did onto the next one. Again, it looks a lot, I've lost a lot of detail back there that I would have otherwise in a newer camera. But, I'm on a 10-year-old camera here. The point of what I'm doing is saying, I'm not discouraging you from upgrading, but it's more stopping you saying, I can't get out and take photos because I've got a 10-year-old camera. That isn't the case, as you can see here. Plenty of people would be very happy with these photos. I think it struggles a bit with this mixture of colour. This was quite cool, this fog over here. I mean, I wasn't spending a lot of time composing these. I was out walking the dog. I was with my son. But I just, as I would really if I'd got a camera around my neck, snapping away at things. So these again, I'm fully extended out at 300mm shooting. Just thought it was interesting seeing these birds. Wasn't really knowing whether anything would come out. This was a nice spot. Didn't know this existed, and I think you could really do something with a little bridge like this. This is where we believe there's a kingfisher. So I want to try and scope that out a little bit more and see whether we can find anything there. But these, I think there's some potential to, I could be very pleased with a few of these photos. Let's, you could take something like this. Let's just brighten that. Actually, it probably doesn't need it on this one. Drop a vignette in, which just does this. It blackens off the edges if you see what I'm doing here. But it can have a nice effect. I can adjust my contrast. The mid contrast is a nice one to play with. Maybe even drop that saturation a bit. The beauty of this is you can just play with it. And I hope you do this and have some fun with your photography. There's nothing to stop you having to fiddle around like this, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, you just press undo and go back a bit. But that's got some potential there. It could even drop. Let's see some of these effects up here. A little bit like how you do with your phone on, say, Instagram or even Twitter and Facebook now. You've got a few preset settings in there. Well, this is one that they've got, vintage. So straight out, I haven't done anything. It's done everything for me. Toy camera is one I used quite a bit as well. And it's doing all this clever stuff down here that you don't need to know about. If you don't like it, I just press undo. And it's taking me back step by step. And the beauty of this in RAW is at any point I can say revert to original, and it just takes me back to my original photo, which looks rather flat now. So I'm just having a bit of a play. Yeah, I'm trying to get across to you that this is a 10-year-old camera. It really was. When I look at it now and see the spec of it compared to what I've got on a 5D, it's really quite poor. But actually, I've had a lot of fun with this, and I would be very happy. Something like that you could put up as a print on a wall. I'm going to put a square crop on that. You know, that's not far off a photo that you could use and do something with. These were just some shots that I took, again, the sort of things I might play with out with the dog. Not convinced that any of them were winners, but that wasn't necessarily down to the camera. Shaking off. What I did find, and I think I mentioned this at the start, was the autofocus was not as quick and responsive as I'm used to on a newer camera. So they're the kind of improvements you would expect and you would pay for with a new camera. But by no means am I saying this isn't a usable camera. I could get something I would be very happy with on here. There's another action shot. Look at those birds running across the water, trying to chasing each other around. Yeah, all different types of things, and again, all within an hour's walk. Would you be happy with these? There's nothing particularly skillful. Settings, what was I on? I think I was on an aperture priority. Yeah, I am. It tells me here aperture priority. So I'd set it to 5.6, and I wasn't concerned with my shutter speed, because on this lens it varies as I zoom in and out. So this was shot at 200. I've got my ISO at 400. Yeah, Jamie found some corn out in the field. But I think there's some good shots in there that I would happily put up on Facebook or Flickr. What do you think? Impressed? And I'm not showing, I'm not trying to show off and say, hey, look how good I am. Not in the slightest. That's just really showing this camera off. And yeah, celebrating my 10-year-old camera that's still very usable. So don't get too hung up in getting the latest camera. By all means, if you've got an older one and want to upgrade to something newer, go for it. But don't get disheartened and think, oh, it's pointless taking my camera out, it's too old now. Yeah, hopefully we got that across. Very good, very pleased with these. And yeah, have some fun with your camera.